Good evening, Ben. We are looking at 3 people, I think, possibly 4. I think I might have figured out how I've got people. Seven, possibly. Hi, Wendy. Good evening, John. How are you? Thanks for joining us, all of you, so far. Now, Ben, you know about this. When it says concurrent, is that the number of people or is that something else? Because I just discovered that and it's going up and changing. And I'm just wondering if that actually is the people that I've been seeking to find out. Good evening, Derek. Thanks for joining us. Now I'm assuming that the sound is super duper. Everything purports to be in good order. You have 8 and I have 8 and my iPad has 8. So concurrent must be people sitting watching, or yeah, that are tuned in. I guess that must be what it is. All this time I've been looking for it and it's actually been staring me in the face. If that's the case, we just lost one. So we got one again. That's crazy. Technology, people. Well, hopefully we won't have a big problem. James, good evening. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope you are still beavering away on plans, sir, and you haven't got too much time to watch this stream. You have so much building to do, sir. Good on you. All right, I'm only teasing. Well, thanks to Ben, once again, we got to the end of a few more issues, which were why the camera kept going off. We don't have to rely on the card anymore, so we will not have a issue with the camera going down on us and losing it. And the situation with the dipping in and out, as it were, of the stream last time was it built up too much memory and just froze, and it's a known fact or a known factor, so we are now good. I'm glad you're working on it now. That's the way it should be, James. So yeah, but thanks to Ben again for coming up with the answers for me, and fantastic. I do appreciate the help you've given me and making this work, Ben. Thank you so much. We'll wait a little longer. My eyes are a bit puffy tonight. I don't know if it's pollen or what. I don't normally suffer, but I can't seem to focus clearly. But that's my excuse that if this goes horribly wrong. I've already prepared my excuses. Watch the memory. Yeah, I will be. I've got that little box up. Slightly hidden actually, but it is there. I will just call it into view. Now the interesting thing was that I put it on earlier, Ben, and it showed about 22 megabytes, which is low, as you said. And I came back just before the stream, and it actually showed 133 actually. So what I did is I turned it off and sort of looked at it for a little while and then turned it back on again, but it came straight back in at 133. It's now sitting at 265 and climbing. So I do hope that we're not going to run into any problems. Should what happened last time happen again, everybody, just be aware that it will be a case of me literally turning everything off and turning it all back again, and hopefully we will be as we were. So if that does happen, I apologize, but please just stay on the line, just wait, and I will come back to you as soon as I've literally powered down, powered back up again, and we should be back in business. Okay, so before I talk everybody to sleep, I am going to get going. Now, one lovely seagull. Now this was a beautiful gull. I did photograph quite a few of them. I'm just gonna get the box a little bigger so I can actually increase its size. You can't see this, but I am quite literally blotting out my view at the moment of me and what I'm doing, so I'm just going to concentrate purely on the reference picture. Those figures are very low. The problem will only kick in when you get about 20 to 40 gear. Yeah, let's hope we don't get there, but I will keep an eye on it, don't worry. Okay, so we are showing, I think, 12 that I've got here. Now this is a rough piece of paper, not quite literally, but it's a 300-pound 640 GSM rough paper from Saunders, Waterford. I put my standard 1-inch tape round the side, which you all know, and that's all ready to go now. So all right, let's crack on. Just want to make one little check. Oh, I've got to say a huge apology to everybody who tunes in on a Friday for my new video for the week. I had some issues on the not the upload to YouTube, but the rendering issues, so it did delay matters today, which meant that by the time I was trying to get it uploaded to YouTube, it would have crossed over the time that I start this stream. I did try and test it and it lagged too much, it wouldn't operate, so I had to cease the upload, and unfortunately you're going to have to wait until tomorrow morning sometime to see what should have been today's Friday film. I do apologize, it's annoying to me too. I've actually been quite pleased that for the whole year I've never missed a Friday, and here we go this week. It looks like I have no choice in the matter. Right, our seagull. Now basically I don't want it to be too big because it's not just about the seagull. I'm just going to push it back a little bit to the full image so I can see the whole picture. And we've got this lovely arc of rocks, which I'm just going to put a very, very light line through. Actually, it can come a little bit further over like that. Nice little arc of rocks in the water. A great big shape here. And this is the thing about this, that you can actually make this... I don't have an answer for that. Oh, my Siri. I didn't mean that to happen. You have the bird, you have a shape and format here, you have a shape here, and then you have the few rocks in front. So basically we've got about 4 large elements to this picture. So I'm just going to suggest something like that, and then I'm going to plant really where I want the bird to be. So maybe its head somewhere about there, and its tail somewhere just above this section of rock, somewhere about there. And quite simply, I hope, is I'm going to just put my pen on and measure top of the head to where the grey starts on just below the nape of the neck, and that is a little bit bigger to there. So forgive me talking to myself. I am just trying to establish what is halfway and where is halfway. Okay, so if we go top of the head to halfway the body and then the tail, so whatever I got here needs to come down to about here, so that will come down to there. So all right, it's a start. Sue, good evening. Yeah, I do hope everything goes well this evening. So you missed out on the explanation just now, but it hopefully will not cause a problem again. Right, just take that mark out. Now we've got a shape, we've got two, certainly we've got a nice pear drop shape in here, which if we go around something like that, a little bit down here and in, and we've got this lovely pear shape here. Now that will suffice for the back. Okay, something of that nature. It's not, it can be altered. The whole of this painting is all about the drawing. Get the drawing wrong and the painting really is just not going to happen. Jim, I didn't. Jim, good evening. Hi. I didn't spot you in the bottom there until then. Good evening to you. We are looking at 14 viewing. I'm going to come up now. I said from about where the feet are down here, somewhere like that. I'm just going to give a small indication to the feet. They're a very small part of this whole thing. It may be that this has to be shortened down and made a little smaller, which I can quite easily do. I'm not making huge marks in the paper, so I'm just giving myself a little bit of breathing room as I sort of design this shape of this bird. And I'm just coming up here with the head. Now the head is very stocky. They're always a very stout looking bird. Very powerful beak, and I think that my head is just it looks okay, but the head itself is too large. So I'm just going to suggest where the eye might be, and look at that shape just very quickly. Just come back round, and having put those first lighter marks in, I'm sort of just trying to suggest where the rest of this will be, the bill and the nape of the neck, and also the throat, which is going to go in something like that. All right, and now I don't want to dirty this paper because too much erasing like this and I'm going to end up with a grubby mark for my bird. So I do need to keep my paper or my eraser quite crisp and clean. The eye is quite high in the head at this point, and the head goes up well past the eye socket and back over here and gives a nice sharp descent down like that, coming tucking in and then back out to there. Now this is where I've got to really be careful on my planning. I'm going to raise up this area here, take that out so I don't confuse myself. Teresa, good evening. Sorry you're a bit late. Well, you know, better late than never, as you say. Good to join us. Thanks very much. I'm going to put in the shoulder for the wing, and that comes down a little bit of an angle, not as round as I first suggested. So there's a little angle here like so, and nicely drop down, and that will come out and forming the secondary flights, and then the darker primary into the wing where it's folded back. And you can't really see the one on this side. It probably is there, well of course it's there, but it's very heavily foreshortened, so you're not going to see it. And then of course you've got this part of the secondaries on this side coming into there. Now I can almost see that that side here and this side is where the shoulder for the back should be, so that will allows me to take that out and bring that down, coming into there like so. Now I've got to look and just measure the difference between the head and the body, so I want to put that on there and just check where we're at. We're not, it doesn't, it to me it didn't look right for a second, but I don't think we're that far off. I do feel though that this part of the wing should come out further, and these should come back a little further than I have first allowed, something like that. Nice little angle, then that can come down. You got a little shape there, and that scoops in, and then it's all about the observation, something like that. Tidy up some of my mess, as it were. Just keep checking and erasing lines that become superfluous, non-essential. We don't want to overcrowd it, and we don't really want more there than is really needed. And we will look at the beak in a short while, but we're getting the bird set up, and I want to come round and down under here to the tummy and round towards the rump, and that will come out straight there and allow me to suggest the first of the two legs. And they got that lovely elbow joint, and then that comes down and onto the rock. And this one, there's the white part of the tail, which is, it arcs like so. It will straighten out in flight, but it will sit quite arched as regards the feathers. They're all laying on top of each other. The outer ones are underneath, of course, all of these ones sequentially until you get to the pair on here that you can't see. But that's how they're arranged. And it may be, I think, that I could do with it being just see, this is when you start to see everything that's not quite where it should be, and you start making small adjustments to this. Now the rocks will literally draw in a very few minutes, but the actual bird, you do have to take an awful lot of time. There's a little bit of white there, for instance, on there, and let's make that the shape of the tail through there, like so, something like that. And then we have the back of the rump coming arched up to the vent and then down, and you can just about see. Now here's a very good tip. You've got a slight angle to the other elbow there, and you also know that the elbow is at the bottom of this tail. There's very little leg above. So let's just put the elbow in there, which does tell me this has got to come down at a much greater point down here, like so, and then come up, and then it comes back down again on the other side. So there was a clear indication that there was slight little bit out on that part of the tail, and let's just put that back in like that. So now we've got that about where we want it. In fact, that can come down a little bit like so, something like that. And let's just take our other leg down to the water, like so. I'm not going to be putting too much in. You just got this little bit of the back of each foot that you can see, something like that on each one, because obviously the bird's facing away. So we're going to put that in and suggest those like so. Is it about right? Let's double check again. I'm just putting my pen up, my pencil up to the bird, and I'm just working through roughly where I think we've got. And we're not far off. We're not far off at all. I think we're in a good shape with that. Okay, I'm just going to strengthen that foot up, and looking a little bit weak at that point, let's just put that in. And we can come down and we can look at, we've got a lovely shadow which we can suggest that will just come down here. And then we've got the, as I said, the wing and the shoulder, and then we've got the back of the plumage down the back. We've got a little split that suggests the central area of these flights and down through there. And we've got a little arc round here that's suggesting that part, and then of course we've got all the secondary flights and feathers in here like so. And that's pretty much the geometry of the feathers, but we're not actually going to put too much of that in. I'm not really into doing all of that. Now then, let's just look at where the eye is, and as it comes down, I think we're not far off where it should be. So I am going to make this area up here just a little thinner, and that will come out to the throat like so, just a small mark, and then we've got the shape of the mouth in there like so. Right, no one else has said anything. Okay, just shout at me if you want to say something, because at the moment my mind is on this. I'm just going to come in, just reshape that a little bit, and put the outer part there like so, give it a bit more, comes down nicely into the leg. Okay, and there's a little bit of a bump in the throat there, not maybe as much as I've shown. Take that out, let's just come back in. and let that run down almost there, and take that out like so. So okay, that's not, I'm not unhappy with that. I just want to take that down a little bit, take that line out, which is of course not needed. And again, I'm just going to check once again, and I'm looking at the mark from the head to the grey in relation to the wing and the feather. So I'm going to check once again on here, and I don't think that we're far off. I mean, there's, you know, with a lot more time and what have you, one can make so much more, but I think essentially we got that about right. Now I'm going to actually bring that in there and take that out a little bit, just there. Just want to give that different shape just there, like so. Take that round to it like that. Okay, that isn't quite how it should be. I can see that. So once more, just take that in like so. Take that out, and we're not far off. Now we've got some lovely white bits in these tail flights. You see them as little white areas. So I'm just going to take a lot of the pencil away, and I'm just going to literally just suggest these little white marks as a reminder for me to leave them when I come to the painting section. Okay, let's get into the serious end of this bird, and let's just put in the beak, which has got a lovely shape to it, but a very, I've fallen foul of these beaks on more than one occasion, has to be said. And they got that lovely little red blood mark, I call it, in there. And then we got it shape up and down. Maybe not, we don't want to make it look like a vulture, but that's not far out, I don't think. Let me just come in. I'm just going to come in a bit closer on my end, on the reference, and just make sure that that is a little bit too of a Romany nosy type affair. Let's take that out. Come on, there you go. And let's just give that a better curve up, like so. That's better. And we got the mandible, top mandible comes up, round and into there, and then we've got this shape here which forms like so, and we've got the nasal passage about there, and then we've got the skin that comes down through to something like that. There's a double angle like so, and then it comes round and into the mouth, and the bottom will come out like so. There we go. I'm not too unhappy with that. Let's just check the eye shape. It's best when you're doing an eye of a bird, it's great to not try, if I got a spare piece of paper just to show you, I should have. It says, flicking through his pad. Now if you've got an eye of a bird, instead of trying, okay, go again. Instead of trying to do a round circle like that, it's better to try and maybe suggest a little circle, but then to literally look at the area around the bird in forms like a 50p piece, and you create the eye socket very, very easily that way. Okay, and then you can put the eye in, and then you can start addressing the lights and the darks that make that socket work. Okay, so what I'm going to do back in here is I am going to just take some of the pencil line out. Just take some of these back as well, they're a bit heavy. Just going to gently tease some of this away, and I'm using a putty rubber for this. If you use hard pencils or hard rubbers, you can damage your paper. So I always draw with a 2B or a 4B, and sometimes, if I'm lucky, a 6B. What I'm also going to suggest you do, where you've got a lot of pencil mark down here, is just put your hand on a piece of paper. I should have maybe done it before. I didn't. It's not a big deal, but it does help you to stop any oils from your skin getting onto the paper and affecting the way the paint will work further on. And they got a very, very small, they got a beautiful light eye, but a very, very small pupil and that gives them that intense look, like so. I'm going to leave that quite bright, just take off some of the dark around it, but there we go. Alright, so we have done a lot of that. I'm just going to kick this back out and reduce the area of my screen so that I can see what I'm doing. There we are. Okay, I can actually see now the relationship of my bird and the drawing, and I can see, do I need to change anything? I'm sort of a little bit suspicious of this area here. I just might give that a slight change in the shape there, but it's not too bad. It's quite a nice long neck on this bird. I've kept measuring and doing stuff, so I'm not too worried about that. Now I'm just going to suggest in one or two of these lines that are the rock as it goes into the water, and then we've got some others that are jutting out through here, which again, it really doesn't matter if my rocks are different to those of this photo. I've got a little undercut to this rock here, but what I didn't see, and what is nice, is you've got this lovely reflection of this rock, and that's what gives you this lovely 3-dimension. What pencil am I using? I'm using a Twist Erase 0.5. I have, you know, there's so many, Sue, that I've got all different makes, all different types. This is a Faber-Castell. No, it's not. It's a Staedtler, and this is a 2mm lead. So if you want to cover some bigger ground as a sketch, you can. Seldom use that in watercolor, you know, drawing up a watercolor, but it is a very useful pencil nonetheless. Let's just suggest this here. Now, because of where the bird ended up, I am going to change this position a little bit, so we get this jagged rock coming up like so, little undercut, and that will take us off to the end of the painting. Now, if you look at the bottom, you see little bits of pale blue of wetness catching the light from the sun, and we've got this happening all over this picture, and that's really what I wanted to do. This area here, this rock, it's got some nice dark material up here, and we can chart the progress as it comes down across and round, and sort of comes dark towards the bird and down a bit further, and it's very subtly in the water. Now you can tell that I am looking along and I am looking down at this bird, so that's why you're getting the length and the look that you're getting into the water. So hopefully we've got enough. I'm not going to put too much drawing. As I said, it wouldn't take very long to do this part of the work. This is where the work is involved. Get that wrong and your picture was just not going to work. And only in the cool light of day, in a sense, when I can stand away from this and look at it, can I actually see if my drawing was okay or left wanting. I don't know, but it looks okay right now, so I'm going to literally run with that and just going to put one or two other lines, and I can finish those off. But essentially the drawing is done. Yeah, I don't think, I'm just going to actually put in a little bit here just to suggest what the bird is actually standing on, so something like that. And as a nice cast shadow behind the bird, we can actually make great use of that. And then of course we've got enough we need to make for the reflection, so I'm going to change that slightly, bring that dark line down like so. Then we've got enough in here for reflections before we actually hit this piece of rock here, and that's why I've just made that a little steeper, just to give me a little bit more room to play around with some of these reflections just in the foreground here. And although this is low down, we're not going to get the rush of water through between these two rocks. There isn't enough without changing the whole idea. Now tell me, while I'm doing this, guys, have a chore. Back shortly. No problems, Jim. Now, the other week we did the Thames barges, and I did one in watercolor, and then I did another one in oil. And I'm thinking that this very subject, this bird and this water and the rock, would make a great oil too. So let me know what you feel about maybe on Monday we revisit this one and we do it in oil and see how it goes. It could be a complete mess up. I don't know. We'll see. James, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. That's cool. Cracking. I'm just checking to see if I've missed anybody else out. No Judy tonight. Where's Charmaine and where is Judy? We got 20 watching. I thank each and every one of you, even though I don't know half of you who are watching, but thank you all the same. 20 is now 19. Oops, I just upset. Oh no, 20 is back. Good. Right, I'm going to put that down and I'm going to start working on the color. Now then, there are one or two areas that I really, as I said before, I do need to protect the white paper. I'm not going to attempt to try and put in white gouache. I would like to preserve the whiteness of the paper. I'm just trying to clean up the relevant areas, and then I could have gone in here with all this white. Now I've got two choices. I either, if I was doing this on my own without the cameras on, without streaming this to you guys, I could be quite happy to sit and put a whole load of masking fluid on this painting and let that dry up before I proceeded. There's a lot of very fine ripples now in the oil version, and there seems to be a good feedback, so we probably will do an oil version on Monday, but that to do these lovely highlights in the water is a lot easier, of course, and to that effect. So it's a lot harder to remember when you're bringing a wash down the paper to be able to do that. But I'm going to give it a go, and I am going to use a larger brush. Which one? Quite a large one, I think. Bear with me, I am procrastinating. I'm going to use this quite large dagger brush. Alright, lots of water. Now the first wash, the first value over this, it is a light watercolor. But if you look into that water in the photograph, you've got many different subtle variations of color. You've got very blues and violets. You've got some yellows. So the day is... trying to remember when I took these. I just finished doing this actually is outside of the gallery that represents me in St Mawes. So you come out of the gallery door and you walk across the road and down the parapet, and you are on the stony watery edge, as it were. And I stood there and painted St Mawes Castle from this position, and if you just literally look down, then these rocks were in front of me, and the birds, there were several of them, blackbacks as well as the herring gull, all sort of sitting there, and yeah, it made a great sense to take some photos. Right, now then, let's just come in with a subtle wash, and I'm just trying to decide where I'm going. I want to put a very, very weak raw sienna colour through the sea, and it is going to be a weak one, and I want to try, if I can, and preserve as much of my sort of ripples. Already I'm losing out to them, but if they are pale in terms of finish, then I'm not going to cause too many problems. What I could do, and what I think I will do, is just tap a bit more colour before I continue. What I could do is take a dry brush and skate across some of this so that I actually leave little bits of ripple. I want to put in more, if I can, than the photograph suggests. So I'm going to put some more colours coming in and down, take it to the corner, just skip across some of these where there are little bits of white mark, doing my best to leave as much as I can there for further on. So I need to come in and tuck that right up underneath the bird. Try and not take the wash over the bird, if I can help it. Take that colour all the way out. I'm having to look because the lights are so loud on this, I can't quite see where I'm going with some of this. So I'm just going to take that, and hopefully I am depositing the paint in the right places. It's not so easy. Okay, I might have to start looking at some of this lighting moving forward. I'm going to put in some of that yellow through here, which will work very, very nicely against the bird itself, because the bird is going to be a blue-grey through there. But I want to actually capture as much as I can of some of these lovely lights in the, not only in the water, but you know, on the edges of the rocks too. And just take some of that down. I'm just going to lean back a little bit so I can see, get away from the streamy light. I'm going to skip one or two places so that I get this lovely yellow color through the back here, picking out some pencil, not a problem, and just take some of that down. Now here I have an awful lot more light to take care of. So I'm going to scratch through that, leaving lots of little white patches as that comes down through here. Very little yellow in fact, so I'm just going to make very little of that indeed, but just try and suggest as much as I can. I can't see what's happening with the camera. It's quite possible that you can see my head bobbing all over the place. I apologize if that's the case, but hopefully that will give us very much a basic feel to the water as a start. Michael, good evening. Yes, okay, well, I will do an oil, I think almost certainly. And those of you who are watching, behind me I have now got a blackout blind, so we have no more problems with light leaking from behind and creating a silhouette, although I'm sure there are one or two of you out there that think that having me in silhouette wasn't a bad idea. I think the neck is a fraction thinner as it falls just to the right of the eyes and not exactly directly below it. Ben, now you tell me. That is just not good enough. You should have been on the ball. Yeah, I think you're right actually when I look at it. So I need to extend the throat there and take that right. So I've got to wait for it to dry, Ben, so we'll come back onto that one. I've made a note of that. There's always one, isn't there? Always one. Jeff, good evening. I'm only teasing, Ben, don't worry. I appreciate the comment. It helps me because I'm right on top of this. It's a funny angle, so yeah, that will work very, very fine. All right, I'm going to take that color out. I don't really need it anymore. And I am going to start looking at the very pale blues. Now there are blues and there are blues. Now we've got a bit of cerulean blue going on in this water, and that's going to be tempered with a bit of violet, a little bit of ultramarine violet in there, just to knock it back a bit. And I want to test a piece of that. I'm just going to test it off camera. That will work. And I think we're sort of dry enough not to worry. And I'm just going to put in one or two areas like this into the water. Maybe not as strong, but it's not bad. I'm using the edge of this brush to give me the effects that I seek, and I'm using just the pointy edge, as you can see, to draw this through and drag and drop the paint where I want it and where I want to suggest it. So I'm trying to look at all the different bits and pieces of the rock and different parts that I need to take into consideration. So I'm going to come across and keep this going. Maybe not all just little skimped, but a few solid areas. Trying to think of the way that the movement of the water would be. Now, they don't want to be too big really back up here. You're going to get larger areas, but try and look at the distance between there and here. And you're going to have to sort of make that work in terms of the distance, which is not too long, not too far, but it does have a bearing, so just watch out for that. I'm just going to come back down in here and put one or two others in. Now this is where if you've not mixed enough color, it will tell. I'm going to come a nice large area through here and take that up and just play around with some of these lovely little shapes in eddies in the water. And there is agitated water around here too, which we have to look at that. And quite a bit off of the side here. Right, so let's just observe some of this, take that away. Quite a bit of wetness went into there, not a problem. Just going to take that back and just put a bit more area and solid colour in one or two of these. Right, so that works. Maybe one large lump there. And let's just look at some of these movements. Let's look at the way this water would rush through, and it would create all sorts of different shapes into the water. That's a way too strong a mix. Okay, take that off, add some more water to that. We can clean the thing out later. I just didn't want it to become too strong. So I am going to look and put one or two areas through it like this, and just play around with it like that, and just see where I think that it needs doing. And okay, quite a nice little shape running through there, which I want to try and pick up. Maybe take that through there. A little bit too dry. Let's give that a bit more fluid, a bit more water into that mix, like that. Okay. Now then, we're going to need a little bit of dark under certain places, so let's put a little bit of that blue through there, and let's take that right the way out like that, and can add a bit more ultramarine violet, a little bit more violet colour up into some of this, just to play around with some of the shapes. Take that carefully down the side of the bird's wing, and just maybe a couple of marks going this way, suggesting other movement in the water, like so. And come back into other areas, and these areas are now very dry, so be careful. They are different values, and I've got two different values seem to be working now. One is more cerulean, and one has got an awful lot more ultramarine violet into the mix, but neither of them are a problem. Just gonna keep playing around until I'm happy with where we're at with this. Okay, that's a little bit, and that picked up a bit of green. Be aware of that. Take that out. Okay. And there's quite a bit of movement in there. So let's just take that. Now don't forget also that this paint will dry very light, much lighter than I'm putting it on. So if you think, you know, sometimes you put a colour on and think, oh my lord, that is just way too much. It will dry lighter, so don't necessarily panic. Only panic when it is obvious that it's too dark. No, I'm only joking. But don't sort of really start panicking over it, because it often or not you'll find that it's dried so much lighter, and in fact often you'll figure out that you actually have to put a bit more on because it's not done enough. Whereas at first thoughts you thought you'd just done too much, and that can often be the case. Now I think we've pretty much suggested the blues and the yellows, and I'm going to leave that alone, let that just stop. Just take that hard edge off of there, and maybe just play around with a few crisscrosses here to suggest that the water in this area is a little bit more activated. It's pushing through some shallow rock. The rock is all joined up. It's just a little hollow there, of course, where the water is allowing is being pushed through under pressure from the incoming tide. So let's just put that in there like so. All right, now let us see if the paper is dry enough. I think it is, Ben, so I can actually just pop back in. I'm going to bring up the image again a little higher so that I can see the relationship that you speak of, and you're spot on. I couldn't see it for looking, but we're going to take that out. We are going to just taper that throat out a little bit more to about there, and then that can come out like so. And I think if that will erase and we don't get a problem, I think that's probably going to work. Just check that. And the shape of the mouth through there. That will come and meet that part there like so. These are just faint lines, just suggesting where shadows and muscle. This is like the throat, and then you got the neck muscle here, which will give rise to a slight difference in the look of shape, shadow and form. And of course we know that when you are painting, please forgive me, Paul, can't have to go, catch you on Monday. Okay, John, thanks for joining in, mate. Very good of you to take the time. Thank you very much. We are 24 watching, I think. That's great. Almost a record. So yeah, where are we? So I think that works now. Do you concur, Ben? Do you agree with me? Because it is important we get this about right, and I think that actually comes down through like that. I'm just going to change 1 or 2 marks so that we get a nice clean edge there. But I think that's fine. See you Monday, John. Have a good weekend, mate. Enjoy your modelling. I must catch up with what you've been doing on Piccadilly. I've been a little bit remiss in that regard of late, so I must correct that and get back onto into the flow. All right, carrying on. Now, where do I want to go next with this? I want to put in a very pale grey over the back. Now, the pale grey to the bird's back, interesting, because there's a lighter grey and a darker grey, and one I perceive as being a little cooler than the other. So I'm going to suggest a little bit of a little bit of yellow ochre, but I want to make a grey out of that. I don't want it green, I don't want it any other colour. So I'm going to put in a little bit of Indian red, and I'm going to put in a little bit of my violet. Now we're starting to get somewhere, but I'm going to put in some ultramarine blue, and that will take me to a warm-ish, let's say, grey, and I want to put that over pretty much the entire bird at this point. Let's take some of this across like so onto this side and all the way up into that shoulder, coming down and down, and let's just leave that. If there are white, obviously white marks, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tap. I'm just going to come down so far and leave the ends of the feathers, these lovely secondaries. All right, I'm going to leave them with little bits of white space. Let the paint tell me where it stopped and started, as it were. And in fact, what I have done is I've missed a little bit of light that I need to just take that off. Clean bit of paper will do that job. Thanks, Ben. I think it works better now, and it's good of you to point that out, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end and realizing that that's not good. I took that bit out there because I didn't want too much color in there, so I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to suggest a little bit darker in 1 or 2 places, just around there, and let that settle down into the blend. I can actually add to it later, but this just gives me the primary color, and actually can take that all the way down through to underneath the vent area, and being careful not to encroach over this part of the feather. We need to preserve that. And I'm going to put in just a little bit, use the brush upside down, just tap in a little bit of dark through there, and just leave that alone for the moment. Let that sort itself out. Now for the bird's head, I want to put in several colors, but I want to use a very lovely blue, not a dirty one like that. Let's clean that tray out. Let's come back in with a bit of phthalo blue and just see where we go with that mix. Just want to see what it is. I only want subtle tints. nice and fresh. Now we'll then come back over and add to those. Now this part of the head is, although it's got a light part on this part of the neck, it is nonetheless still in quite a bit of shade. So I want to put that in like so, protecting the yellow of the beak. Bring that down, and I've got to come out, and I want to protect that light hair, that light area above the head, which I spoke of, and take it just over the top of the eye and around, something of that nature like that, almost touching the back of the neck here. So literally coming down like so, and then down and away, and that will start to create that lovely shadow that we spoke of before. And I'm going to take that all the way into the edge of here, which then forms up like that. Now what I will just do is I'm just going to take off just a little bit and just let that stain the paper at that point, and take off a lot of paint out of my brush and just blend those two lovely areas together, and a little area out here into the head. Just gently take those off like so. Okay, that's not so bad. Let that just dry up now. Okay, now that I don't want to touch too much, but I want to try and get in as a little bit more of the violet in here. A little bit of violet, a little bit of ultramarine, a bit more ultramarine. Let's just look at it, and actually a little tap of indigo probably wouldn't go amiss, just to take it off the pure blue. And while that's still damp, I'm just going to carefully put in a darker value here. Now I think there could be a little tap of vermilion into that. Okay, just to dirty it off from the pure blue. Take that round very carefully. You don't want to do anything to your design, your picture. And let's put that lovely color into the neck, coming down through here. Let it come across here, watching this comes into that little bump in the throat there, like that, or into the neck itself, and then that comes down and bleeds away to nothing, as does this area here. We're going to increase that little bit that runs down into the shadow, so let's just put that in. If truthful, I've brought my shadow a little bit rounded, but it's not a big deal. I'm not overly worried by that. And then we can soften any areas, but while I've got this color, I want to take it down over the eye to there, and let that come down the side of the face, looking at leaving little areas where there is the muscles on the cheek and under the mouth. So don't just put the color everywhere. Be aware that there are little areas of light that you need to preserve those as that comes down and into the throat area, which we will have to do a little bit more work on, but that's good for now. Now what I'm going to do, I don't want that hard edge. I'm going to soften with the dampness of the brush, soften this side too, and take that and let that just slowly work itself away. Gentle little easing with the damp edges of the brush fibers. If it's not enough, I'm going to use a bit of blue pigment just to bring that back in and let that come down and bleed back the other way. I think and I hope that that will settle down to give me the little light edge there that I was trying to keep a hold of. If it doesn't, not the end of the world. I'm going to try and ease off just a little bit here as it goes back up into there. And don't worry about anything here, because that's going to get a little darker as we move forward. James, would you recommend having a break from oils and go to watercolors? I tell you, James, the honest thing about changes of medium, I mean, there are people, I mean, you could put 20 people in a room and come up with 20 different results, and I think it's the same with most things. But for my own part, and I know there have been many artists out there that would totally disagree with me, but for my own part and all the years that I've been painting, that when I first started, I wasn't a watercolorist. I was an oil painter primarily and an acrylic painter. And I had no tuition from anybody. I totally self-taught, and any hurdles, obstacles that came up, I had to deal with them myself. And I found the only way that I could actually do it, when I got to a hiatus with my oils, I would put them away and I would turn to acrylics, and I would work with acrylics for a good few months, may even be a year, until I found a hiatus within them. And it seemed that by going back to oils, I had further sorted out the problems that first caused the issues, as it were. And I did that. I bounced from between the two, and later on I introduced pastels to that regime and watercolor. And so my honest opinion is that I think that if you're happy with oils and you're happy with watercolors, then use the two in conjunction. You know, from the point of view of these streams, that I'm actually painting both in oils and watercolors each and every week. I'm swapping between the two. That's a little harder because obviously as an oil painter, swapping over to watercolors, you have to put a completely different hat on, and you have to get into that frame of mind, that mindset of a watercolorist or that mindset of an oil painter. But I think that having the ability to jump from one to another, I think is really worthwhile doing. I think that you have a lot to gain, and it also keeps your painting quite fresh, because you're still looking at very similar subject matters. You know, if you paint a lot of birds, or you paint a lot of wildlife, or a lot of landscapes, whatever it might be, you probably observe both of those in two different media. So I think the approach becomes quite refreshing. So a long-winded answer, I'm so sorry, James, but I think that if you absolutely have the two materials at home, then I would actually bounce between the two. Don't give it a 6 months here or 2 weeks there, as and when it suits you. Just if you've got the ability to have both on hand, use one and then use the other. It matters not. So I just think it will give you a little bit more thorough understanding of the drawing and the painting processes. Will it make you a better artist? And yeah, I don't know, ask me in another 20 years, James. I might be able to give that an answer. All right, okay, I'm digressing. I'm going to get on. Does it make you a better answer? I don't know. I would like to think it did. Heck knows. I'm just going to clean my yellow out, and I'm sort of changing the subject very quickly because I just want to put a very superficial colour in while I think on it for the beak of the bird. So I'm using a bit of Indian yellow for this. I only use 2 yellows. I do have another one in the palette, which is that all of them are transparent. I'm just going to put in just a very simple yellow color to begin with, that is the beak. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that, and that gives me a nice reference. Now what I'm going to start doing is looking at all this other water. So I'm going to take out that yellow, going to have a glug, check the thing. James, have you made yourself a better artist yet? You haven't had a chance yet. I'm sure. What makes a better artist, anybody? Practice. The more you do, the more you look, the more you observe, you know. Don't be the person that has a painting kit in the cupboard and it's a lovely object and you've forgotten what it looks like, so it's been so long since you got it out and used it, which is a great shame. I'm going to come in with a very subtle warmish color over some of these rocks in here, and I want to leave a lot of skippy marks, as it were, that would suggest the water reflection. And I'm just going to allow, this is why I came in with this brush, this paper, is to be able to achieve some of these effects in this fashion and allow the paint to just literally jump across the surfaces of the paper. Now you saw me just put in a couple of little taps of neat, almost neat Indian red, and that was fine, no problem with that. I'm just mixing between the two and adding a little bit more warmth here and there over the rock, and just to allow the water to, yeah, well, just do what it wants to. I quite like the effect that that's allowing, and we can take some out if we got too much of that going on. It's not a big deal, but it's just allowing us to have one or two extra bits and pieces happening with that water. You can't get that paper back once it's gone, so you do need to be aware of that. And I'm just going to put in, you can see how I'm holding this brush. I'm just using the benefits of the side of the brush to give me a much bigger area of coverage. I've got to be careful now that I do not lose the shape of the bird's head, but I do want to make this light rock but dark enough to throw the bird's head out, and that is quite crucial. This is a little bit of, you know, getting the right value but not overdoing the value and not underdoing the value moving forward. So you've got to get it about right to show that this bird is as it should be. I'm just going to concentrate while I just put this bird's head without going over anything, because if I slip and I mess it up, that's done. Got to be a little bit careful. Even that was a little tap too far, so I'm just going to reshape this head as it comes down. I think it needs a little bit more. Okay, I will check that again, and you know, if anyone is watching, I know Ben, you got a good eye for this. If you think that it needs a slight change, we can do that. I'm not too unhappy with it. I think we're pretty much good with it. But just in case I'm missing something here, then by all means chip in and let me know. Going to take that off to there, blend those two areas, and we got a little bit coming there, and I'm going to put that down because there is actually water there which I haven't actually allowed for, but I'm going to put something in there in a moment. So I think that works. Right, just going to bring that whole idea down here. Maybe mix some more color, so we're going to have a bit more of the red, a bit more of the violet, a little bit more red than that. Okay, let's take some off to one side, dry the brush out a little bit so we can play around with some of these shapes into the water. You can see what I'm doing. It's quite craggy, these rocks, so I'm actually allowing that brush to almost tap away some of these shapes like that. It's almost, you can almost feel the ridges in the rock doing that. And then I want to come in where it's really dark around the bird's shoulder, and that will then be allowing me to throw the bird out. And this process is called counter change. This is where I use light and dark depending on what's behind or in front of the bird to throw the bird out towards me when I'm painting it. And in this case a bird, it could be an apple, it could be anything that you're painting. Look at light and dark areas behind and in front that can be used to strengthen the edge of light passages or throw out darker passages on the bird as you move forward with the painting. It may be that I've changed a little bit of the light sources in here, and I'm not overly worried. If I am really concerned, I can come in and take a little bit out. I really don't think that there's a big need for that. So I'm going to leave that as it is for the moment. Carry on with the area in front of the bird now. Now we've got a darker area here, and we've got a light area here. So I'm going to use the same principles. I'm going to come in with a indigo, and sorry, not indigo, with the violet. Take some away, put some of the red to that. So I've got two pots that I can play with, and I want to come in and skip around again. Fairly light, but I want to suggest that there are dark areas. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Dragging that brush a bit carelessly then. Just coming down here where the neck is very evident, we're going to put in a dark piece of rock coming into there, which will throw out the neck. I'm going to add to that dark. That's not the be all and end all. I'm just going to take that up there, scribble a few lines into there which suggests there's the rock and the water, and I'm just going to carry on that idea and bring it down through here, maybe a couple of other lines into there like so. And we've got a big dark passage, but we are putting that right next to a light passage on the bird's chest, which is just going around there. I did lose it a bit there. I can't alter that. This I don't think I can. I'm just going to see if it will ease out a bit. Yeah, we got a bit lucky. All right, not a problem. But just going to tease that down because that will set itself up dark against the light on the bird's chest and a bit around the top of the plumage around here. So we've got that nice dark area, and I'm just allowing me to leave a lovely little line around the edge of my bird, and then I can actually scratch that off, take that away, and play around with some of these darks further on. There are lots of fissures and marks, scrapes on these rocks naturally occurring, I believe. I'm not quite sure of the type of rock, but you can actually put what you like into those. And I'm going to add now a little bit more yellow into some of these shapes coming down through here. And let's just bash this one in. Very same sort of thing. Lots of lights, lots of darks to suggest the edges. And we can go back in very, very quickly and create the shadows and other bits and pieces that we need to render this rock in the final part of the painting. So I'm going to put that down through there. I'm making some of this up as I go, but I don't think that that's a big issue. We've got that lovely reflection there, which I'm just going to tap into like so. It will be more solid and it will be darker. Now we've got to look at the area of the rock behind, so let's come in. We need a lot more and a bit more violet in there. Makes a very, very dirty greenish color. Is that where we want it to be? Possibly, possibly not. Let's put a bit of red in, a little bit of red, and maybe some ultramarine blue, and we can come back in and play around with some of these marks here. And let's just take that down, and we can lift some, we can add yellow to that maybe at the top. Just drop that in neatly without mixing that first. Just let that paint. Sometimes that really is a neat idea. Just allowing the paint to fuse and flow within the surface of that wet mixture that you've created by not mixing on the palette, but literally just dropping that in like this. Just do it again. Dropping that in and let that set up and do what it wants to do. We can come in here and we can do the very same thing on this one. We can put our violet in maybe, and we've got some darks that we can use in here. And like so, and then we can come in with much warmer colors on top, and we can just play around with that. But as I say, that is just giving it some clear way of moving forward. I'm back, I know. Thanks for the warning. Looks great. I'll catch up on what I've missed. Right. Yeah, no problem, Jim. Okay, good question, and one I'm often asked, James. Watercolor paper. Basically, there are three different types of watercolor paper. There is a hot press, which is the fine surface, which is the opposite end of the scale to this one. And I think I used it in my last watercolor painting I did for you, or did I? No, I actually did it for this week's watercolor film, which will be out tomorrow. And then you have one which everybody uses, is called a knot, N-O-T surface, which is like a semi, it's got a bit of tooth to it, but it's not rough and it's certainly not smooth. And then you come up to the heavyweight, which is the rough. Now you can get all of those types of papers, James, in all different size weight wise. Weight on a piece of paper is measured in grams per square inch and pounds. So the thing that people often get confused with is that they see something that says 200 on it and they think they've got 200-pound paper. Well, it's not. It's 200 GSM, probably only about 90-pound paper. So you do need to watch for that. Just going to take that horrible little area out and just soften it. I don't mind it being there, just want it a bit softer. So what this is 300-pound paper, and it is 640 GSM. And those are the two areas that you must make sure when you look at a pad or a block what to get. I would recommend getting blocks of paper than loose leaf, because they will allow you to paint a picture before you take it off. It's dry, and then it just holds it tight while you paint the process. Let the paper dry and use a credit card through the little slot that's provided and take it off. Judy, nice for you to join us. Thank you. Yeah, you missed a bit, but not too much. We've still got the nitty-gritty to do yet. We're nowhere near finished. He says. Right, I'm just going to put that lovely little bit of blue before I miss it and forget it. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure where I wanted to do that. I'm going to use a bit of cerulean, little touch of that raw ochre, raw sienna, and just tap that into the eye. Maybe a little tap of lemon just to make it a bit more obvious. That lovely fresh little colour that's in the eye. I can't see much of it, but I want that done and dry so I can then put the dark cell around, and that will then throw it out. Yeah, so your paper issues, go for a block or a pad, but I would recommend a block, and yeah, I think from that point of view you'll have a great bit of fun with that. Okay, so I'm now going to come in with another layer on these rocks, and this whole process now is about different layers. There's a lot of warm going in on these rocks. Now we're going to get that darker mass going. I'm going to go for my favorite mix, and that is going to be some indigo, which you would think was the wrong one, but it's not. I'm going to use some orange into there, and that will bring it back to that darker, warm, dirty color. And let's just put in some of these areas through here and just see how they set up. Actually going to add a little bit of vermilion to that too, and just come in and look at my rocks. Now I'm looking at the reference with scant regard to a point on what's there, because I know my drawing is not the same as this reference, but I need to pay a certain amount of attention to it moving forward. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm just going to be using my drawing and my thoughts to render the shapes and the fissures and the dark shadowy parts of this rock in this way. Hopefully I'll get it right, and hopefully there'll be enough little bits of white paper popping through that will suggest to you viewing this that there is indeed some wettish, reflective waters on the top. I'm going to put one or two softer little dirty marks in here, not totally losing all those violets, but just to suggest, and that will come off and into some of these ripples a little bit as we come away from the rock. And this is getting towards the sort of trickier parts, and just want to pop in and add to some of these darks without overdoing it. And put a little bit of cerulean to some of these mixes. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to come back in and put some red to those mixes. Keep looking at it, and yeah, just going to put in one or two other values coming off of the rock here into the water. And you can see that there are little areas which are reflecting in the ripples around the rocks and giving me those lovely suggestive flow marks of the water itself. Little areas that may be like here, for instance, just above the beak, let's come in, and there's these several little graded colors into the water like so, and that all of it is just changing and moving and pushing the water around into different angles. Nice little areas of dark, and allowing some of those areas to remain light and hopefully popping through. And it's just trying to make sense of all this patterning, because you're not going to try, or you're not going to really get away with it if you try and mimic exactly what's in the photo. You are there trying to paint a suggestion of what you see. So I am just going to take this all the way through here up the side of the head, and that is going to be that dark that I'm seeking at that point, and let that come off and splay out like so. Lovely brushes for doing that job, and that's giving me that lovely dark around the top of the bird's head, and I'm feathering that off up there. Let that take away, and yeah. Now if I was using hot press for this job, I would have struggled leaving some of the skippy marks, the dry brush marks like some of this. I would have really struggled with that. As indeed this week's video that I know you're all itching to see tomorrow morning. I know you're going to have coffee ready in the morning waiting for me to upload it so you can watch it. But in there you will see a very similar situation when it comes to the need to leave the white space. And I do go to great lengths to say what a chump I was, in a sense, using hot press paper for the job. So it's one of those, but there we are. We can't get it all right all the time. And I'm going to bring some of these darks up into here. I'm going to start working on this area. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. I'm sure we got enough. Where are we? We are an hour and 16. We haven't got that much time. Okay, so I'm going to come in with this big, bold, dark. I'm going to put some vermilion, some orange into that. It's quite a warm, hefty dark on the edge here. Nice big shape. And that actually is a nice block to stop everything going off the edge of the paper. I quite like that. And that comes down to a great big lump of dark in here, which we're going to use. Let that come down and draw with this brush. And I've only used I think I've only used the one brush tonight. And it just shows how darn versatile these brushes really are. Whether you're painting in oils with one, or whether you are painting in watercolor, they are a darn good brush. I'm going to come up and I'm going to lay that in there and in there, and give me that lovely shape of heaviness, and let that come down and into the water somewhere like that. I think that works. Like so, not bad. Just drawing the dots on these two. There are a couple of dark marks and taps that go over the back there. Run out of paint. Let's come back in. Let's have a remix. Lots of red. That's probably too much. And a little bit of orange to warm that through. It's quite dark now. It may be too dark, and I think it possibly is. So let's bring some of that to one side. We're going to use that because we can go in with another little value of dark towards the end of this. So that's not a big deal. A little bit of vermilion into there. Warm that up again. Okay. Look at some more of these areas that have got these significant dark areas, and let that come around and into the side of the neck of the bird, like so. Being very careful that you don't overdo it and lose or go into anything that you don't want to in terms of the bird and the painting, like that. And let's just check one or two other marks. Okay, I think that's working. Just let that come down like so, and you can start building this up. This is a whole series now of layers, the process of layers, as that goes off and disappears into the water. Take some of that away and let that come back round. And we've got this big super dark that I've been waiting to do, and it starts back up in here. Let's draw this first off while it's still wet. It doesn't matter, we can bring that all the way around the edge of the bird. We've set that up now. We're going to make it a bit warmer, and we're going to put a big lump coming away from here like that. Big contrast down the side here into the water, and there are one or two other fissures that we need to try and suggest with this, going off over the back here like so. You get the idea. I think that works, and we can come off with some blues. Just take some of that into the blue, and let's just play around with some of these values here to suggest that that is indeed going off into the water with one or two of these little marks like so. You can be a lot more careful. I'm being a little bit fresh with this, a little bit, I suppose, a little blasé with the marks, but I think it works, and I think it's keeping the whole painting nice and fluid, making it nice and movement, lots of movement. Okay, a little bit more blue went into that, and I want to drag some of that through there and let that go off into some marks off over here, which is a little more suggestive of movement in the water going away from that piece of rock over there. And then we're going to put one or two darker marks up into here so we get another value of these ripples. And I'm using several of the colors already been used, and you get the idea that we get these lovely ripples away out the back, getting smaller as they go to the top. Try and keep them random, don't make them too uniform as such. That's a little bit heavy. Take some of that out and lift that back. Not a big deal. You can soften edges, you can keep them hard edge. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, either will work, but you just want to vary some of the marks that are way out there in the water, and it does help break up some of these colors, and also adds to the effect of making these rocks appear as part of the scene and not just glued on. So I'm just going to come back in here and add one or two shapes and marks this way. You can see I'm tapping into the same colors that I've been using for the rocks. Not a big deal, not a problem. I can boost the blue and come back in that way like that, and the result is pretty much the same whichever way I do it. I'm just going to put one or two marks in there. I might just take that up there like so, adds a bit of weight to the top. And I'm going to use some of those ideas in here now. Some of these same colors, some of the same darks, maybe a little bit warmer on one or two of them, as they, because what's happening is that as these get closer to the rocks, the water is very crystal clear. You know, you can see your feet very deep in this water when you're paddling around on the edges, and so to that end it's really reflecting some of the colors of the rock in this water. That is what you're seeing. Now I'm going to cool that back a bit. I'm going to put in a little bit of cobalt turquoise. I love this color. I take it for when I'm working down in Cornwall. The waters down there just need cobalt turquoise, and I don't get a lot of chance to do it when I look outside the English Channel. So I'm going to use it in here. I'm just going to put one or two lovely little colors in here and overlay some of those warm colors with this, and just let that do what it wants to do. I think that works very beautifully. And take that color in, and we can use it in other places. Not going to be the only place. We can actually run some out through some of these colors here. Just gently take that away and let that soften and give that a whole wash. Actually, that would work nicely. Just glazing over the ones that we've already put there, but that will work because the colors underneath, of course, are dry, so they're not going to cause me any horrible cauliflowers. So I'm quite happy with that. Alright, I'm going to use more of this. I'm not going to get rid of that. I'm just going to use maybe one or two bits up in here, and maybe mix a little bit more up, and to bring some of that down in here in a little while. And maybe, I think we've got quite a suggestion of the blues here. I'm going to come in with a bit more strength in that. And yeah, no point making it exact with the painting. You might as well frame the photo. Absolutely, absolutely. And I've just remembered who James is. I'm sorry, Phil. We're gonna have to have a talk on the phone over this, mate, because it's throwing me. Alright, I'm just going to skip around in here because I want a lot of white water to remain, and I want to mix up some of the blues and the greens and all these other bits and pieces going on in here in this water. I love it to be fresh, colourful, and to me that is, when I go to Cornwall and on the beaches, it's just fresh, it's colourful, it's just so beautiful to be there, and I sort of love it. And whenever I get down there, I really don't want to come home. I wish I could be down there permanently. Fortunately for both Catherine and I. It's just way too far away from our children and their children, our grandchildren, to be too far that way. But certainly good for a good couple of holidays every year, that's for sure. So I'm going to put in a lovely sweep of that. I love this blue or this turquoise colour. I just love what it does. I'm going to actually use that in this, and I'm going to be a little bit more free to use it as it's coming down into this part here. And I don't want to lose all that pale colour, but I certainly want to make use of it in this part of the painting. Alright, I'm digressing a little bit. I'm just going to soften that edge through there and soften that little hard edge that's there. I don't know if I just made that or that possibly from the previous wash, so if that is the case, I'm not going to do too much with it. I'm not overly worried, as long as it doesn't come back and bite me for doing that. Alright, so we are moving slowly forward. Porthcurno Bay by Minack Theatre in Cornwall. Oh, beautiful clear water. Yeah, I mean, I love Porthcurno, and I've painted many pictures at Porthcurno, Porthscatho, just up the road, and love it. Right, okay. Where do we go next? I'm going to come in. I've used all my real dark up, so I'm going to leave that for a minute, and I'm going to come in and remix that. So I'm going to make a really heavier indigo and a lot of transparent orange. That's quite dirty. I'm going to put some lovely dark Indian red into that. And I'm just going to play around with some of these darker values in here. Just work those into the painting and give me an extra value of depth, as it were, and just drag some marks in. Just try it and not make them too I don't know, laboured, I suppose, really. There's me sort of drawing these little shapes in, but if you can get away with making them fairly randomly or spontaneous, then the painting will look the better for it. So I'm going to bring some dark in here and just add to some of the drawing that I have already put in, being careful not to hit the bird with it, just being very careful. What I will do is I want to bring some dark down there and create the lovely shape of that part of the neck. Take that away. I'm actually going to use some of that blue, some of that turquoise in there. Just feel that there's a little bit of turquoise will help that situation beautifully. Look at that. It just works so nicely. I'm having a lot of fun with this, got to say. I think I said to Wendy in a text message yesterday that I wondered if I've bitten off more than I can chew with this one. But I'm enjoying it. I wasn't sure about it, but I am actually enjoying this piece. So I'm going to actually come back and mix another dark up, some more red into there, and that actually will work without the orange this time. So I'm going to come back in here and literally draw this shape in around here, being extra careful again. I can't replace it if I get it wrong, and put the shape around this rock into there like so. We'll deal with the outside edge of it, as it were, and bring that drawing all the way down. And we've got areas of shape around here, and then I'm going to come in with a much heavier dark in here, which reinforces that area of the chest of the bird that I literally nearly missed last time. Bring that in like so, and I need to put a few eddies in here, but we're just going to come down with the edge of this rock like that, and a little shape over the back there, and one or two more like so, and that will deal with that. And come in, we're going to make a little bit more red just to change some of these little values in here, just leading into the water like so. Looks like a lion's paw, doesn't it? I'm going to make that, mix that up a little bit, take that away. I've got a funny shape there which I do need to get rid of, I have to bring that into the painting somehow because it's made a bit of a dirty old stain. I'm going to make that into a bit of a blue and take that water all the way up there, and that actually helps because I can take that up to the throat or the neck of the bird and leave the little bits of white to do whatever they want to do. And yeah, alright, I'm going to use the same dark mixes more and more, and some red, a little bit warmer in this one because I want to put in the different edges of this rock like so, and I've drawn it a little bit higher than it is, but I'm not too worried about if that just stays there. Just going to bring that out like so, and a little bit on this one, and let that come back into nothing as it were, and one or two taps in here. You've got a few facets of water that are running out the way. We're going to use those. I'm going to come in with a very, actually put some of that green into this mix. Dirties it up quite a bit, but it will just allow me to skate around with a bit more water attached to the brush and play around with this and lose some of these eddies and give me that extra little look in the water at this point, and just let the brush dance around and create the little forms and shapes in the water as it's sort of rushing through this part of the picture like so. It's quite a complex painting, I gotta say. It's a lot more complex in terms of all these little arrangements of shapes and forms that I hadn't taken totally into my thoughts, as it were, when I started out with the idea of doing it. But hey, I like it, and hopefully we will get a painting that we can be happy with. Just looking at some of these lovely little shapes in the water, this lovely this lovely little turquoise colour, which we're using quite extensively now since I realised I still had it in the pot. It's just a great colour, and I want to make a little bit of a rush off there. I'm going to take some of these and make them a bit dirtier, and just suggesting that there is movement of water away like so, just a few odd taps, maybe one or two areas like this that suggest other bits and pieces going on in the water. Now with the oil I can come in with a different idea, and I can make everything a lot darker and allow me then to put the taps of light in at a later stage, and that works very well as well. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do with that. Just softening some of these marks off, let them disappear, and some of these little eddies and stuff that you see happening on the surface are because they're rushing past little bits of rock which I can hardly see or tell. They're literally just poking their heads under or about the surface of the water as it's rushing about. So it's very, very hard to paint or legislate for that in your painting. So I'm not going to really attempt it. I'm just going to actually add some more dark values in here and suggest that the water is moving. That will also aid me when it comes to painting the bird. It's going to be a bit darker, the bird brown there, so I don't want to make this area too dark, but I'm just going to try and suggest some lines that give extra movement, and taking it through the bird, through its legs as it were, gives a continuation of the flow of water, and then starts to join up with the water and the eddies we've got going on over on this side, and that works very nicely. So we're doing quite well, I think. Would you prefer to use masking fluid in the water? No, I don't think I would, Sue. I've never been a great fan of masking fluid. I'm quite happy avoiding it if it's possible. It's one of those things, you can use it, you don't have to use it. Both work, and they can work for you and against you. Oh, dry throat. All right. Let's come in with this dark now on the facets of the rock here, and I'm just going to come in with, again, another mix. Really, this is coming off easily now because the paint is quite wet, So that's working very nicely. I'm just going to use taps of the brush like this to suggest just the little bits of the rocks, the little craggy bits in the top here, little fissures. This one, believe it or not, the tide does come way up, and all these rocks, doesn't matter, it doesn't seem to matter how tall some of them really are, and they are big monsters, some of them, they all get covered up by the tide pretty much. You know, it's just, yeah, get that bit of weight into the corner, work off some of that yellow into there, and just change some of these lines here and make them a little fainter so that you can see them, but they are just little fissures and little shapes within the surface of the rock. And I'm just scribbling, aren't I? Really, when you look at it, I'm just scribbling over the surface, but trying to, as I scribble, trying to sort of look at the rock and the design and the shape of the rock, so that I can, where I can, possibly mimic some of the depths and the little fissures that I'm looking at and trying to render in the paint. So there's another sort of big one here, which I'm going to take that out like that, and just, I think we're pretty much there on it, and a little bit over the back there coming down that side, giving another shape and another bump, and maybe something there. And I have left a bit there, but I did miss out a bit of the blues that were in there, because I was more, actually I'm not, because the blues that are in the rock in your photograph are way down here somewhere. There wasn't the ability to put those in. I'm just going to put in that lovely bluish, use some ultramarine blue into that dirty blue mix. I'm just going to come in and going to put in that lovely little bit of shadow that is part of that rock in the water there, and that seats that in quite nicely, and that sort of comes round and evolves into that dark area there, like something like that. Now it's all about using contrast. It's all about using lights and darks to make this work. Let's come back into the bird for a little while, and let's look at some of that blue. That blue looks quite nice. I'm going to use a bit more ultramarine blue, and I really am treading carefully. I'm going to put a little bit, and I do mean a little touch, of the Indian red into that. Just going to touch the bird gently with the colour and just see if that's light or dark. I think it needs to be a little more Indian red, not too much. I'll keep going too far. I'm going to try it again. Okay for the lead edge, but I'm not quite happy with that, so I'm going to come in with some more blue now and add some more ultramarine to that. Let's just bring that through, and hopefully we're about where we want it to be. Nice and dark down the lead edge, and add the weight to the bottom of the secondaries, like so. Treading very, very carefully, not overdoing it. I want to put in that shadow on that part there, and that does lift up and actually gets cooler. So we're going to put some cobalt into that and just take that up through there, like so, and just tap off the edge. I don't want too much of it there, just giving me that shape. And I went a little bit too far with that there, but not a big deal. Bring that round and let it just stop, and then the same little bit, there's even fainter because it's in a lot more light, so I'm just going to bring that little shape in there, which gives that lovely little shape to the feather at that point, and then come down and just suggest a little bit of dark through here. That then comes down, and you've got one or two taps in the flights, which we are going to put in, and that little tap down through there. And while we've still got enough of this paint left, we're just gonna actually make a bit more. The pure blue is not such a bad idea, and take that all the way through to the edge here, like so. Just take that up, maybe a little bit of the red, and just bring some of those darks in like that. And maybe a bit more red, just to take some of those up further, up into here to meet this area. So we've got pretty much the same value touching the two wings, and just one or two bits up in the top here and down, just looking and trying to observe some of the shapes that we're looking at. That's not too bad. I need to now work a little harder on some ultramarine blue and some Indian red again. But for here, I am going to come back into these shadow marks onto this part of the neck here, and going to redo some of this stuff. Now I'm going to come in with a slight more redness to that, and let that blend away and out, as it were, like so. Now I'm going to soften that effect. I've dampened the brush, cleaned it off, just drag some of that material down and away like that. Just gives me an extra value of dark where I need it in there, and across this area here to reinforce the edge of that there. And that will then come down and disappear, I hope. And then I will come down into the throat and do pretty much the same sort of thing. Bit of blue and a little bit of Indian red. That's way too much Indian red. Back to the blue, and that's probably too much of that. But we'll just check a little bit on the tip, and here I'm going to just take the reference up again so I've got a clearer view of what I'm doing, and then just going to draw all those little dark marks into here that I need, that are coming off of the beak and into and around the bottom of the eye and the back of the beak there. These subtle little changes that are part of the muscle structure underneath that are causing the shape to the plumage that we're seeing. So I'm going to put that in there and take that down into the throat, which is quite strong in colour, but maybe a little lightening wouldn't hurt it. So I'm going to take the edge of this brush, just gently tease off some of that, and just gently take that into the back of the head there, and let the two become one, like that. Okay. And gently, 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 just suggest that comes away. Alright. I'm not unhappy with that. I do need to come back and just tweak the eye towards the end of this painting, and I don't know how much time we've been going, but we probably will go past the 2-hour mark tonight. I do apologize. It's quite a complex painting, and I make no bones for taking my time. No apologies, should I say, about taking my time with this. I just want it to be a good painting at the end of it, and one that I'm pleased with, and one that you've enjoyed watching. So yeah, I'm just being careful and taking my time. Right, I'm just gonna come back in and put in a dark line that was missing through the back there, and it wants to I'm going to actually add a little bit of that greeny teal to it, and then I'm going to work it back out because it's just a little too heavy. I'm going to take that out, but I want it to come over the eye like so, and to disappear like that. I don't want to, I just wanted a little stain just to isolate the eye and over the top of the eye like so, and a little bit taking some of that out as well. And I do need to then let that dry off before I go back in and do any more. Now I have lost a little bit of the light here, I've got to admit. I'm going to try and restore that. You can sometimes, I think we just about did it. Actually, I lost a little bit of the head there. I can see that, but I can't do too much with that. we can just restore that bit of white to the top there. And then I've got to come back in and, as I say, just set up the rest of the eye and just finish off the dark around it, just softening that little area so it doesn't look like a pattern but just a mere change of the muscle tone. And I keep going through paper like it's going out of fashion. Right, we are down to 19 people. I've put a few of you to sleep then. Okay, right, now then, we have got to look at bits of the bird that we've neglected so far, and I'm going to carry on with this brush for the moment. I may well change, but it's got a lovely point to it, and I'm going to use some of the darks just to suggest some of the shapes to the feathers around the wings, and in here just one or two extra little bits and pieces that will help us finish the plumage off. Maybe a little dark over there, just tapping off excess that I don't really want. There's a little dark between the feathers where a little bit of lift and a little, you can see into the depths as it were. Maybe one or two. No, that's a little bit too heavy. Just take a bit more care. And a little dark in there and one or two marks like so. Just working down the body of the bird as I come down and just checking for little areas that give or indicate a bit of feather structure without trying to paint every feather in. I don't like doing that. I never will like doing that. But I'm just trying to suggest that there are, by one or two taps like this, there are lots of bits and pieces going on with the plumage on the bird. And there's a lot more over this side because, of course, it's got light and dark contrast is quite a lot. So I'm going to put a lot of that in. And where one feather is overlaying another feather, but I can't tell exactly what's what. But the real thing will come in a moment when I start to work on this area here, which is the start of where the split in the feather is, and we get into the darks of the tail. So we've got a line coming down through here, and we've got a semi-dark, not a total dark, a bit of violety dark in here, like so, up to there, and then we come back in with the real darks, a lot of indigo, a bit of orange, a bit of red, just to cool it back, and we've got a few taps of feathers we can see there, something going on. I'm not quite sure what I can see. Then I'm going to leave that there, come all the way down through here, drawing very, very carefully, almost a dry brush. I'm almost using it like a pencil in a sense. Just coming in with this lovely bit of information around this last feather there. Real heavy dark in here. Bring it on through, being very careful not to lay this brush, because one movement wrong with this brush and it will deposit paint everywhere I don't want it to be. Now don't forget that this has got these lovely little white marks in the tail flights that you see, and that's what makes this bird really, really striking in the air. And take that line, get that line about how it should be. If you're not sure about the movement, you know, the degree of water, add to some water. Just going to give that a little bit of a warm finish to the edge there, and you can see that they turn around. The feather is not quite rounded, and that often changes too, because depending on what time of year this is, whether the bird is in great plumage or not, it can be winter plumage, could be eclipse plumage, and it could also be literally in fine plumage, but because the bird has been breeding, of course the feathers through constant hunting for food and the chicks and all these other little bits and pieces will give rise to tatty feathers, and at the end of the season of course they will rest up and molt out. Okay, so that's pretty much done that. and I'm going to come in with a little bit of cerulean blue, and I just want to put that with a bit of the violet just to take it away. I just want to put in a shadow on the tail so you can see the tail, not a problem, like so, and then a lovely little V-shaped shadow like that has occurred, and then just a little darker where there are many feathers, as I've told you, the way they lay on top of each other like so. And now we're going to come into a very warm value for the foot. Better get that brush put together a bit better than that. I was going to leave me in a real bad state. So I'm just going to come here and draw the foot as it comes down. Got a real old knock knees situation going on with these birds. Really quite a weird looking old foot. And I'm going to actually add a little bit of cadmium red to that. It gets quite reddish pinkish as they go down. I want to do that. And I'm going to add a little bit of red on its own. And a little bit of magenta, actually, that would probably even be better. Give it a little bit of violety pink as that goes away like so, and that side. And do the same, but with probably a little bit more of the pinky mauve on this side, a little bit more in evidence. So let's just bring that out, down, and we can put that out through there like so. A little bit more of that pinky colour, a little bit of alizarin again, and we can put that in like that. Alright, and we're going to come into this part of the rock in a moment. Alright. Okay. I'm going to change the brush for a little while. I want to put in a bit of fine detail, so I'm going to use my lovely semi-rigger if I can locate it. I always have trouble finding that brush, almost like it doesn't want to come out to play. Come on, Maria. Okay, there you go. Right, I'm going to put some details in, and I'm going to let the legs dry up first off. But I want to put some darks in around this bit of the rock, and but first off I want to put in a little touch of the two green and the blue colours that we've been using. I would have used the bigger brush for this because there was no reason to go to the small one for this part, but I'd just seen it, so I just thought I'd put it in. In fact, I will have to go back because they're not carrying enough water to do the job. So I'm going to put in a little bit of the blue is what I'm looking for. That's better. Something like that, and let that run through and let that run out like so, and off end from the front in that fashion like that. Okay, now I can put that down, and I've got to be careful now because I can't put the dark in as I wanted to unless it's somewhere where I actually haven't put in that area there, but I'm going to put some in anyway, and just let it play around. It's going to fuse, and if you don't want that to happen, then don't put it in just yet. Wait for that blue that I just put in to dry off first. Just want to put in this little bit of a lip here that suggests this part of the rock is sticking out of the water, and a little nub of it over there which gives it the sound of a little micro moth or fly or something. I don't know what you are, but be careful. Alright, so we're going to put that up into there like so, and this does come through and almost join up with this rock somewhere around there, but we're going to leave it at that point for a moment. And I want to, there is a lot of little edges, and I'm just going to put some of those in. They are sort of lots of little variations in the water, and some over on this side too. Lots of little subtle colours in this rock that I actually didn't quite see. And put those in. Maybe a little bit more other blues, a little bit more warmer blue would be good. A little bit of ultramarine going in there, just to suggest that. And wet it up and leave some little white bits to suggest there's water droplets or glistening edge and catching the light. That works very, very well for that. And look at the colours on the other side. Now this here could be darker. It's a little bit late in the day to work that out, but if it had been done in oil, then of course it would be that much darker, I think. And we could well be in a situation where we can just tap in those lighter values that seem to be missing. So I'm just going to come in and just suggest a little bit of rock here coming through and leaving a few little white bits that are parts of water, as it were, little splashy bits, little glistening. That's what I'm trying to replicate there. Whether or not I've managed it, I don't honestly know. There's going to look at the dark going up into the back of the foot at that point, and then just bringing that reflection down a little bit thicker over the back end of the rock like so, and let that come and twist and wind itself. A little bit of warmer yellow and burnt sienna in there, and just let that, come on fly, you're not meant to be crawling all over my painting, come on, behave yourself, come on, there you go. I thought I had you. Well, you make your own way. Yes, so just literally playing around with these shapes and these marks and allow that to become the reflection in this fashion. And I do like playing with reflections and this sort of thing. Let that come down very similarly. How are we doing? Actually, the OBS, Ben, for your information, is still only kicking around 335 megs, so I don't know what caused it to throw a gasket last time, but it certainly doesn't seem to have had any effect adversely. He says, as the whole thing probably just comes crashing down. I do hope not. Having said that, we're going to set it now. Right, and just going to put that dark in there and just trickle the brush. I didn't need the small one after all. I thought I would, but I'm getting away without using it. And just put one or two lovely taps of light and colour on, just suggesting all these wonderful little shapes and eddies like so. I think we are looking not in bad shape. I want to put these dark bits of the rock in now, so I can dispense with my little rigger type brush, and I should have just stayed with this one all the way through. It doesn't really matter, but I want to come in with a few darks in here now and allow some of the glistening on the edges here, all this white that you see around, just to stand out as this rock that the bird is sitting on. Sort of, yeah, it's just what it is. A little bit dark, a little bit of light, a little bit of warm, a little bit of cool, and just vary what you're seeing and just enjoy that. I like that. That worked. A little bit dark in here. My fly is exploring the rock face now. Come on, fella, because I'm sure I'm going to hit you with a brush in a minute. I don't want to do that. I'm going to come back, just reinforce that rock there. I went a little bit wide with the brush, not a problem, just reshape the end of the rock. That's not a big deal. Alright, where are we? The little Paul Apps banner bottom right was there when we had all the problems. I don't see it there now. Is it there, Ben? I can't see it. I can't see the bit with me in it, so I'm assuming that it's either gone or is no longer an issue. I'm just going to come back in here and warm this up. It's a little bit too quick with the cool blue, so I just want to take that out and give that rock edge a bit more warmth, and 1 or 2 darks up into the top end of it. I'm going to come in a bit more blue and a lot more red into there, and some of the orange into that, and just play around with some of these values in here, like so. A little bit into there, take that down through there, and a little bit in there too. Alright, now I will have to come to the small brush, and where are we? How much time we've been going? 2 hours. People, I do apologise for the time this has taken now. We are over the 2-hour mark, so yeah, feel free to go and make yourselves a cup of tea, desert me, go to bed, or whatever it is you're doing, but I am just going to carry on. So I hopefully you will stay with me and see this one out. I just need to keep feel my fingers are damp, or my hand is damp, so I just want to make sure there's nothing wet there. Come on, and blow that fly away. He can make his own way. I just want to come and rest down carefully while I just carefully draw around the shape of this eye. Again, I don't want to get it wrong. If it goes wrong, then I can't change it. And I just see a little bit there that I didn't wish I had. So I'm just going to take that off, and I do need to come back in with that brush to do that. I've just given the bird some eyelashes. Didn't want that to happen. When this happens, right, going to come back in the dark here. And around there. Reinforce the eye in the center. And down underneath. Okay, now the bit that I'm not happy with is just there. I'm going to see if this careful persuasion, I do stress careful persuasion, it's not guaranteed that this is going to work at all. I actually don't think it's the paint. I realise that it's actually my pencil mark that I'm seeing and not paint at all. But there you go. It is what it is. And I'm just going to put that little tap there, which will give me the curvature to the eye itself, front and back. And now we've got the eye in place, as it were. I do want to just tease out the little front bit there. Just take that away a little bit. Okay. So, Sue, what happened to young Luke tonight? Is he busy with trains, I suppose, is he? Right, I think we're pretty much on there. I do need to, while I've got that down, to look at deepening the area of the beak. So I'm actually making it quite dirty on the underneath, like so. And getting that lovely bit of red that goes on at that part of the beak as well. Quite dark, and you know, it looks yellow, but it is yellow, but it's more musty yellow at this point. And that's going to get quite dark there, and come back in with some more yellow into there. Okay, same sort of thing on the top, but not quite as much. So I'm going to put that in, take that down, leave the nice little bit of light over the top and around the back of the nasal passage, as it were, and come in with a bit of darker bit of warmer, a bit more orangey, dirtier colour in through here, and down around through the back there like that. Got that lovely little shape as it disappears into the cheek, just about there. And then I'm going to come in with some lovely cadmium red. It may be too strong, but it may just corrupt enough in here to do what I want it to do. That part of the beak there. I'll add a little bit more when it gets a bit unnervy, because you go too far or not, sort of thing. Okay, we'll leave it like that. We're not going to chance doing too much more. What I have missed, and I'm going to have to use a little bit of gouache. I didn't want to do this, but I've just seen something in the eye that is not quite where I want it to be, and to try and get rid of it now, it's not going to happen. Just want to put therefore a little bit of tap at the top there. Now I've got the eye back. I had too much. I think I still need to put a bit of dark in, but I'll let that white that I just put in set itself up and dry, and then I'm going to just come back in and just tap in a little bit more dark there on the eye. There you go. I'm happy with that. So no, I haven't seen any spring watch at all, to be honest with you. You know I love Chris, so I can't wait to get a chance of watching some. But yeah, just to have 5 minutes looking, you know, watching Chris. I jest. No, I did see a little bit, and his stepdaughter was quite entertaining actually. She's a very knowledgeable lass, by all accounts. Okay, now we have just pretty much done. I've got to put in some darks underneath the bird, which I have omitted so far, so let's address that. Let's come in and let us put some dark values, some darker blues in under the rump here, and just finish this section off, going off and into and underneath the wedge of the tail. So that gives that the shape, and we can see that, and we can take that all the way up through there like so, joining into the foot and down to the leg, and the hair, or the fur, the hair, what am I on? The hair, I said it again, the fur will come down like so, and that will set up quite nicely. Okay, we're pretty much done in many regards. It's almost like I's and T's now, and seeing where we want to take it. I'm just looking at where we are. Something's come up there. I don't know what that is, but okay, so yeah, I'm just looking at what you're seeing of my painting. I feel that that is okay. It's a little harsher than the original photograph, but I'm not too worried about that. Is it yours or the beak look wrong? I think it's the your malt whiskey. I don't know. Let me just look at that beak. No, there's a little curvature of the front which I've still got as light, so maybe if I give that a little bit of fresher yellow mix, and that might well give you what you seek. And let's just put that across the top, just give that shape there, a little stronger colour. And maybe a little deeper red in there. Yeah, I didn't want that to happen. I knew that would happen. I should have known it would happen. Okay, so let's just... Your fault this is, Judy. Alright, let's take that out through there like so. And then that dark runs all the way out through there. And the red, as I was trying to put in before, is quite dark at this point, but it does go up to meet the bottom of the lower one, like so. Okay, there you go. Oh, you don't. Well, yeah, I think I just played around with the idea. It's possible that the beak maybe I could consider it a little bit too long. That's one possibility I think that I could say. Maybe it's a bit too long, but I can't change that now. So I've got an extra. I've got a bird with a big beak, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I'm quite happy with what's gone on with that. Now, as regards anything else with relation to this painting, it is now merely how much or how little you want to add to this. You could quite happily walk away from it right now and you'll have a very satisfactory picture. It may be that you want to do some more in the water and playing around with some of these shapes down through here. I'm quite happy with what's gone on, and just sort of looking over the whole thing as I sort of come to the end. I'm just going to put one or two marks in over here, just play around with some of these and some of the darks over the back here, and draw into some of these lines and shapes into the edge of the rock. Maybe even add a little bit of warmth to some of these areas and look up into some of this too. Don't really need to do too much about that. I mean, it does what it does, and hopefully we've got something of a seagull. I'm quite happy with most of it. I think the beak could possibly have been a little shorter than I've given it. I do agree there is perhaps something there. It may be that it could be a little stouter. Let's just see if I actually add to the depth here. If I do that, this might make the whole thing a lot worse, but let's just see. Hopefully it won't. But then we've got that shape through there that might have the effect of shortening the beak sufficiently. I'll take a little bit out of that colour there, just lift some of that back. I need a big brush to take that out. It's not, the little brush just hasn't got the grunt to do it. And a little strong sense of yellow over the top might help thicken and shorten the beak in a sense. And then come back in with a tap of that red, which is not there. And there's a little curvature to the top there which I want to put in. Hopefully that's a little better. The white goes further. Yes, you're right. It does. The white does go further down. I can't change that. I have to leave that. I'm going to tease it. Might get some of it out. Just by teasing and playing, you sometimes get a little bit lucky with it. And that definitely doesn't look too brilliant, so I'm just pushing this way. Gently does it, we may win the day. let that dry, and I can just come back in, I think, and do what's needed to make the difference out. Okay, so let that dry and we'll be pretty much on it. I think that's made, I think between Jim and Judy we pretty much got that back where it should be. I think it was a combination of the beak was basically just too long, so with that said and done, hopefully by thickening it in one part and teasing out the white in the other, it may well have just made the difference. Just going to come in with this mark, just going to come in and put the little dark line back in here. Now I do need that to dry off. It's pretty obvious that that is still too wet to do that with. Take that off and just be patient, and yeah, pretty much done. Okay, another glug I feel coming up. And just while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just looking at the reference overall and seeing if there's something else that I want to do. I'm going to see if I can play around with one or two of these little eddies around some of this water. There's not a lot of power in this little brush to do much, but it will or might allow me to do some. Just to make one or two extra little marks in here. Playing around, a bit more water maybe, a few more colours in different areas would help possibly, but again you've got to stop at some point because you can quite easily overdo and mess up everything that you've done so far. Maybe one or two squiggles and lines like this are suggesting movement in the water. Okay, let's just go back in and see if I can just nail this part of the beak that's been causing a few bits of problem. And just go back here for the last time on the depth. Put a little bit of a shape there and there. And it's got a little tuck in there. And it comes dark up into there. And a nice little curvature around to there. Oh, yes, by Jove, I think we've got it. Deleted that bit. Oh, why don't you just leave things alone? There we go. That's got you bang. Alright, so I will, couldn't find any scotch, so I'll have to open a bottle of sloe gin pour. Are you driving me to drink? Oh, I probably thought I'd done that, Judy. Way before lockdown. I am considering, as I said earlier to Wendy, while I've got, I hope half of my evening group are with me tonight watching. But on the 15th of June, the government are allowing me to open up the gallery again, or at least so I am told. Now, I'm not quite sure how fully I can open it up, but I am very seriously considering bringing those members of my students back into the group, but in spread out. But if I do that, you'll have to understand that the difficulty will come in me trying to physically help you by getting to your painting. It may be we swap seats and sort of walk around each other very, very carefully, as it were, and being like that. But I am considering, as I say, bringing back at first those my evening group who want to start back on the 15th, and get my Wednesday evenings going again. And I do hope that you will come back, and depends on those who do and don't, depends whether we run it or not. And as for my daytime groups, I'm just going to take this tape off for the reveal. For my daytime groups, I don't think there will be that many coming straight back because of ages involved, but again, it's not so critical if you're not on the endangered list, as it were. And even if you are over 70, it's not a big deal. But I will probably end up, if I do have enough of my daytimes wanting to come back, I will probably have a combined class until the numbers grow again on those, and everyone sort of comes back to the fold, as it were. Well, there you are. That's the big reveal. Let's get rid of that rubbish. Hopefully, let me get rid of this reference now. There we are. I hope you have enjoyed that. I have enjoyed playing around with that and doing it. Everything can be better. Yes, it would help to wear masks if you can put up with that. Cheers, James. Glad you like that. Yeah, that seagull stare, they do stare you out. They're quite unnerving sometimes. And as I say, I've had the wrong end of those beaks far too many times when it comes to putting chicks back in nests and different things like that. Even the chicks are vicious. But there you go. That's it. Did I say sing or sign? Jim, are you on the Scotch or is it me? I don't know, mate. But there you go. But I've had a lot of fun with this one, and we're going to do the oil version of this, if that's okay with people, then on Monday. And I will have my Friday video out tomorrow morning by mid-morning at the latest. I am so sorry. I will set the thing ready to download, or upload should I say, the moment I finish this stream, and by the morning it will be sorted out and processed, ready to put all the end bits on. Yes, it may be a good reason to wear masks, Wendy, when we come back. I certainly shall do. And although my explanations may be slightly muffled, I'm sure we'll work around it. But where there's a will, there's a way. If we want to get back to class, I'm certainly willing to give that a go, and we'll just take on where it comes from. Thanks, Ben. That's been great. Mark, thank you very much for sitting on the side there. Didn't know you was there, but thank you for joining us, unless I missed you coming in earlier. But I gotta say thank you to everybody who's been a part of tonight's stream. And as I say, you know, those of you who are my patrons, I thank you very much for all your help as patrons, because that helps towards the support of this channel, not only what I provide for you as patrons, but also doing the streams and the equipment and stuff that I need. Jim, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm also treble glad. Listen guys, this is the first one, and I've got my fingers crossed, we haven't had a hitch or a problem. Yes! Well, I am so pleased at that, I've got to say. Derek, thanks very much, mate. Glad you enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun doing it, guys, and I can't wait to have a go at this one in oil. It's a completely different ball game, even though it's the same subject. Yes, of course you can have the reference for this. I will put it up on Patreon tomorrow. I think I got the other one up, didn't I? So you have that. But yes, of course the reference will go up for this. But it'll be there to download for patrons and non-patrons, so that's not a problem. Yes, Ben, no glitches. It's been an amazing evening that you guys have had a trouble-free view, apart from me just keep gassing on. But I'm quite high with the idea that we've got through this one without something going wrong. So I'm really pleased, and thank you very much. The only thing that has gone wrong is the time, and I put everyone to sleep. We're down to 13 people. I do apologise to everybody who's had to put up with this so long. So I'm gonna wind it up now and just let the stream roll for a few more minutes while everyone says goodbye to each other, and I will see you all. Well, I'll see all my patrons, including you, Teresa, if you're still there. Hopefully on Sunday evening for a stream. Probably be an oil, if that's okay. I think we had a watercolor last week. We're doing oil this week. I'm not sure what we did, but I will do something. And I'll see each and every one of you, I hope, on Monday evening. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, James. Yeah, that's been great. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll talk over the weekend. I'm sure there's a little bit of information shed-wise that we will probably do. So I look forward to that conversation with you at some point. Crack open. Yeah, I feel like cracking open the bubbly. Trio Mark, take care. Have a good weekend. Stay safe, everyone. Be happy and all those things. Happy painting if you're a painter as well. Judy, cheerio. Thank you very much for joining. Yeah. What can I say? I'm Happy Bunny. Cheers, guys. I think actually I'm just looking now. There's that band of blue that went through the picture through here. That really does look like a sort of the way the wave just rolls on in. I'm glad I put that in. That just worked. And it's actually supported by the one up here. I didn't see it at first, but it actually does work. That's really good. I'm really pleased with that. Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, I'll see you on Sunday. Not a problem at all. I hope that Teresa will join us. And I hope Tracy will be there, of course, as usual. Yeah. James or Philip, if you're still there, mate, give us a call sometime. Touch base. Love to hear from you in real time, as it were. Get me on FaceTime or Messenger is probably the best way. And catch up with you, and we go from there. But yeah, okay. Jim, have you gone? I don't know if you are still there. I shall say cheerio to you. Anybody else that's still there, and I'm sure you're all falling away because the numbers are slowly dropping down. We're down to 10, but thank you so much, everyone. So I'm gonna call it a day now and turn this stream off, and yeah, thanks guys, thanks for putting up with me again. Catch you all soon. Bye bye. Bye, Jim. Thanks for tagging in, mate.